Welcome one, welcome all. I am Bridger, or should I say Mr. President. Here we are with GMT's latest release known as Mr. President. It is a president simulator, more or less. A couple of things I want to draw attention to up front before we get started into this monster here is number one, this game is like it's a wish fulfillment, right? Lots of people have problems with what American imperialism does, with what American presidents do. This is a yes, but what if that institution was moral and just and benevolent, right? This is a wish fulfillment situation. I am going to be the president and I am going to do the good job. I am going to save the world from itself, etc., etc., etc. It's kind of like the West Wing in that sense. West Wing is a what if our government was super competent, very thoughtful, super moral and just, etc., etc. In the same way, this game is in that fantasy land, right? It's a what if, and then it takes the rest of reality and packages it around that question. So I think it does a fairly good job. It tells a really interesting story while you're going through it, a very dramatic one, that's for sure. And I guess number two is I'm going to be moving through this as quickly as I can to keep things going and entertaining for those of you watching. It means I'll probably make one or two mistakes. So if you see one, please call it out in the comments just to make sure other people aren't misunderstanding. So first, let's talk about this monster and what we have going on here. What is exactly that we're doing? So in Mr. President, we start as the titular president, having just finished campaigning, and I've just been sworn in, which means that my public approval starts here at 40%, which is not very high. Most presidents are sworn in with a higher public approval because normally you need closer to 50% in order to get elected. However, this game presupposes that the election that put you into office was a very contentious one with a third-party candidate that was siphoning votes off from both sides. Think like a Ross Perot situation. And so you start without a big public mandate, right? So that's the situation we start with. We've also inherited a few problems from our predecessor. So we're going to be dealing with those as we set things up here. I've done most of the setup here, so we're just going to go through the last pieces that sort of set the stage. That having been said, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, but this other screen is also going to be used for me to view the flipbook, which helps when I'm trying to figure out what the next action is going to be. Sometimes it has charts and things on it that I need. So if for some reason I'm not getting back to you, I'm going to try to remember to get to the chat and keep an eye on things. So to start, we're going to find out what kind of president I am. Now, you have a couple options. You can simply draw the attributes you want, or you can kind of pick them randomly. The normal difficulty game, which is what we're going to be using today, allows you to choose two positive traits, or it allows you to do to pick your own two positive traits. I think we're going to pull two traits randomly, and if any of them are negative traits, we will pull an additional positive trait. So we're going to try and get two positives, but if we get a negative, then we'll pull a third positive. So we're either going to wind up with two positives or three positives and one negative. Let's find out what we get. Oh, so we are lacking in social grace, -2 public approval, and -1 relations with Congress each turn. That's going to be rough, but we'll get 3 positive traits to make up for it. We get to ignore all the negative ones now. So we're an ally's best friend. So our allies around the world will like us better. And we're going to ignore that one. We're also an orator, which helps us not only with the State of the Union, but a couple other actions in the game will benefit you if you are an orator. Oh, and we are efficient. So we get an extra 4 presidential action points per turn. So that's who we are as president. Now we've got to find out who our key cabinet officials are. We draw one person for our vice president. We do not get to choose. Here we go. It is Alan Box. Now, Alan Box has a 0-1-0 for stats, and that means that domestically, not so great. Has a 0 in the domestic slot. Internationally, though, diplomatic slot is a 1, so gets a bonus when we're performing certain diplomatic actions that the VP can help us with. And then, unfortunately, not very good on military matters. So the vice president is still giving us an extra bonus action. So Alan Box, not that bad on the in the long run. Now, if we flip him over, he loses the action, but instead he gets better domestically. So if he gets some experience, that's what will happen. All right, let's see who we've got. A couple of options for chiefs of staff that have been vetted by the party. Oof, Andy Lewis, not a good choice. We're going to go ahead and throw him out right away. Wait a minute. It's what? How are there 2 versions of Andy Lewis? I don't know what's going on. This is a what-if situation. And the other one is John Long. Well, this version of Andy Lewis, clearly superior. So we're going to go ahead and keep this one because they are giving us bonuses in domestic, diplomatic, and military from their chief of staff position. Although I don't think the chief of staff ever applies to the military. But there are a couple of their domestic one does matter quite a bit. Now, Secretary of State, this one matters specifically. Oh, no. Only the diplomatic one matters, and it does not look like any of these guys, including crappy Andy Lewis. What the heck? Wait, I think we need to let's redo this because we pulled those guys earlier. I don't think we're supposed to get them again. So this is slightly better options. Kim Richards is okay as a Secretary of State. She gives us a bonus and an extra action. And in the last one, we've got 3 choices for Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense. It looks like Barry Wallace might be. Actually, no. Raul Sanchez is clearly superior in this particular instance. I'm going to close this, actually, so we don't get that bleak in the background. There we go. Now I can see the chat. So I think Raul is going to be our Secretary of Defense. So those are our main cabinet members. So next, we have to set our cabinet effectiveness, which is, I believe, at 4 already. Yes, cabinet effectiveness starts at 4. We now have to draw our exceptional White House resource. Every president starts with one very good something, and that's the case here as well. Oops, this is this one. Our superstars on the National Security Council staff. They are filled with brilliant minds and experienced operators. Because of their skill and experience, you receive these benefits each turn. During both focused national intelligence segments of each turn, you may use this card to perform 1 free intel gathering or Spec Ops Forces raid with an added -1 DRM. That's going to help us take care of terrorist cells around the world. That's very nice. Once per game, you may ignore or discard 1 revealed terrorism event card. Also good. We cancel the terrorism before it happens. Can't say no to that. All right. Let's see. Next, we have to look at the administrative legislative priorities. So these are going to be drawn randomly. So this is what the public is currently prioritizing here: education reform, tax reform, cybersecurity, energy independence, and expanding NASA funding. All right, now we need to set our own administrative priorities. And we need actually, the first thing we need to do is figure out what our campaign promise was. This is also random. So in our campaign, we also campaigned on expanding NASA funding. So if we can expand NASA's funding, we will get a pretty nice bonus here. Now that's interesting. Can't, there we go. A pretty nice bonus here. And now we get to decide what our administrative legislation priorities are. Well, I tell you what, I think if we also make it our administrative priority to increase NASA's funding. Actually, that is already there. We can't have that. We can't double up on that. Fair enough. Okay. Well, we probably want to match what the public priorities are for the moment. So we'll go ahead and find education reform on here. We'll put that at number 1. And then tax reform does seem like the next best thing there. And then cybersecurity. I actually do think cybersecurity is very beneficial. Did I miss it? There it is. We're just going to line up with what the public wants right now as our administrative priorities. There are reasons to choose other things. When you pass certain bills, they have specific effects. Like if the state of the economy was really bad, then I might try to pass some Social Security reform or some tax reform specifically to address that situation. But as of right now, we're just going to match with what the public lines up on. Next year, when we change our administrative priorities again, we might look at the world situation and say, okay, well, our domestic terrorism situation is out of control. I'm going to prioritize Homeland Security, because when we pass that bill, we get tangible benefits. Okay, so we've set up that. Now we have to set up our congressional friends and opponents. Because we're playing at normal difficulty, we start with split party control. One party controls the House, one party controls the Senate. And as a result, we have to choose our congressional friends and opponents equally. So we get 2 friends and we get 2 opponents. We've got Julia Chen and Jason Jones. And Julia Chen is a media darling, so to speak. Apparently has good connections there. And then our opponents, also, Chloe Johnson, good at media. Oh no, our opponents are going to be able to spin anything their way after we pass a bill. They're going to get the credit for it as of right now. The good news is we have mostly moderates amongst our opponents and friends. These are popular, powerful members of Congress that we have to deal with. So that means that we are going to have the bipartisan, let's see, they're more moderates than radicals. We put it in this 2 space. This bipartisan cooperation winds up being very important to being able to pass legislation. And having it all the way over here at the start is very good. The last game I played, I got all radicals, which means both sides wanted nothing to do with the other side. And as a result, the bipartisan cooperation sat like over here pretty much all the time. So this is a great little benefit to us. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and construct the crisis deck, which is as easy as hitting a button. That's already been done for us. But after that, I think we need to pre-seed a few things. Yes, we need to seed cascading events. So, you have to ignore that. So, according to selected difficulty level, for a normal game, we draw 3 cards and reveal each and perform the From the Crisis Deck event. We would ignore any place tension on cabinet focus, any public approval, and any instruction to spend APs. Okay, so this is representing the crises that the previous administration has left us to deal with. So here's the first one, and it is cyber theft of sensitive intelligence / government information threatens national security. So we have +1 domestic crisis, -2 public approval, which we ignore because we're not getting blamed for this yet. This is what happened before we took office. Then we roll 1d10. And we get a 6, which is DNI resigns -1 to cabinet effectiveness. Right off the bat, that's terrible. Ay, ay, ay. Although I don't think that can affect us either. Yeah, that shouldn't affect us because that's a previous cabinet official, not ours. So we're going to ignore that for now. And that is a cascading event. What that means is this has a chance to crop back up. And when it does, if we haven't dealt with it, it will be a problem. So we just dealt with the From the Crisis Deck option in the top left corner. But the next one down, where it says 2, if cyber strategic capability is less than the cyber strategic capability of Russia or China, then things get worse. So if we can improve our cyber warfare track over here, then the next time this comes up, it won't actually be a problem. We'll have solved it. But if we don't deal with it, then it continues to be a problem for us. This now goes to deck number 2, where it will come up in the future. We've got 2 more of these cascading events to draw. Let's find out. Your party fundraising practices under... Oh, my party fundraising practices are under scrutiny. Ugh. We have to appoint an independent counsel or... defend my party. So -1 public approval, +1 domestic crisis, +1 to your party relationship. Well, if we get a domestic crisis, we'll roll for domestic failure. That would be very bad. I think we'll have to appoint an independent counsel. We have to look like we're trying to deal with this situation, which means we lose 1 relations with Congress and 1 to our party relations. So party relations goes down, and the relations with Congress is getting worse. This is not a great start. I don't know how we're going to deal with this. Now we have to deal with the cabinet drama table. Okay. Roll 1d6. Long-term crisis. Oh, that's for the cabinet drama table is a 2. Unflattering cabinet leaks about the president. Ugh. Media relations, party relations. These are terrible. These are terrible. Party fundraising practices under scrutiny. So apparently our election fundraising for our party, not necessarily us, but the party, is under scrutiny. So now we roll another d6. Ooh, 4+, investigation continues, place card in 2 pile. So this is going to come back up. And when it does, choose to either admit you bent some fundraising rules, or crisis deepens. We lose a friend in Congress and lose some public approval if we admit it. But if the crisis deepens, domestic crisis, -2 public, place a tensions counter. Whew, this is terrible. So we definitely are going to want, how can we even get extra friends, I guess, knowing that we're going to lose one when we have to sack them? Oh boy, that's only number 2. All right, here's cascading event number 3. Chinese cyber attack disrupts U.S. allies. Roll a d10 to determine the target. 9 is India. Place a tensions counter on China and 2 on the target. -1 AP counter on target ally. Place a trending anti-U.S. counter on China-U.S. relations. Ooh. So trending anti-U.S. counter has been added. China gets 2 new tension counters. And our ally gets one more. And what was the last piece of that there? -1 AP counter on our ally. So India gets 1 fewer action this round because of this cyber attack. 1 fewer world action that would help us. And we have to roll a d10 to determine target as above, place 210. Nothing we can do to avert this. Huh. Yikes. It just is. It just is bad, and there's nothing we can do about it. Okay. Well, we are ready to go. We've seeded everything with these problems that have happened between the election and now, and we're ready to begin. So let's talk about what you're looking at, because some people are probably very confused by this massive board. So we've got the crisis decks over here. This is the current year. Year 2, Year 3, Year 4 are up here. As we just saw, these cards here can be potentially drawn randomly as a result of other effects in the game that cause these things to come back up as new effects. Here we have the nuclear missile tracks for both Iran and for North Korea. And so we are essentially trying to make sure they don't ever make it up to number 5. Because if they ever make it to number 5 and they wind up at war, we immediately lose. That's very, very bad. Here we have strategic capabilities. This shows our relative advantage versus our peer nations, the peer nations being Russia and China, who, are adversarial to us most of the time. So you can see we start way behind the 8 ball on cyber warfare. That is real bad. This box here is just a holding box. These are units that could be added to our force pool if we pass a particular bill that expands the size of the military. Down here, we're looking at more of this military situation. These are the 10 different pre-established adversarial relationships that could erupt into war. These red ones, instant loss. So we want to make sure these tracks never, ever get to 5. We will insta-lose. And these tracks down here are losses if that power in question has the nuke that I mentioned earlier. So if Iran gets to 5 on their nuclear track and they get to 5 down here, that's game over. We have to work against that. Meanwhile, other conflicts could break out that don't end the game for us, but they're certainly not good for us. They really affect the stability of the world really badly. So that is this here. We have to keep track of this and work to make sure these conflict status go as high as possible, stay far away from war. Then at the bottom of the screen here, this area is essentially representing what's going on with us and our country overall. These are the main tracks. The green one here is the state of the economy track. So that one is checked a bunch. where we roll a d10 and we have to get under the number. In this case, we're at a 6. So we would have to get a 6 or lower in order to pass an economy check. We've got Homeland Security, which starts on 6. We've got Media Relations, which started on 5 but got worse right away. And the thing with Media Relations is every single time a crisis comes up where media can spin it one way or the other, depending upon where this is, we either gain or lose public approval. Right now, you can see it says media slant -1 PA. That means anytime those crises come up and the media can slant it against us, they will. So we want to improve our relations with the media so that that doesn't happen. We also want to improve our relations with Congress because that makes it easier to pass bills and saves us from other headaches in the future. The world opinion of the United States, if it goes up, is helpful. There's a number of things that use this modifier in the corner that if the world has a high opinion of us, will make it easier to pass those checks and get beneficial results. Also note, in this game, the vast majority of the time when I'm rolling dice, for me, I want the numbers to be low. Low is good, high is bad. So that's this main set of tracks here. In the center, we have sort of a congressional situation. We have a holding box for potential bills here. And then we have information about the bipartisan cooperation, the current situation in Congress. We have our friends and our opponents in Congress. We have who has control of the of the Congress right now. It's split. And we have pending bills on this track. And then they've got more support or less support that can vary over the course of the game. And when legislation is passed, it is moved to this box to be held until the end of the turn. And then it becomes available to be passed again in a future round, provided it's not a landmark bill. Cabinet effectiveness that almost got chunked right at the beginning. A lot of checks will have us roll on our cabinet effectiveness. If our cabinet effectiveness is only 4, we've only got a 40% chance to pass those rolls. So we want to increase our cabinet effectiveness. This is how good our team is in the White House. I'll definitely be working to try to improve that in the near future. Party relations are important. If only because at the end of the game, if it's in one of these 2 boxes, at the end of my 4 years in this game, the party won't renominate me for president if it's all the way over here. If they hate me that much, the party will nominate someone else. So you lose 15 legacy points, which almost certainly crushes your hopes and dreams. So we want party relations to be a little bit higher. But in my experience, being really high on this track has no super benefits, and it actually kind of hurts you a little bit. So that is that situation. Over here, we have our POTUS and cabinet focus. Every year, we get 2 times where this is checked. And this is our cabinet and executive team working in the background on issues that I have put a high priority on. So I set these priorities at the beginning of the year and we check them twice per year. And then we get these benefits that will happen. So looking at this, we know media relations is pretty high. So ideally, we think we're probably going to want public and press relations to be high. Relations with Congress is going to be pretty important. We start with a pretty good economy, so that's not super important. Addressing domestic crisis, well, there's 2 of them right now. So I think we might, and a lingering domestic crisis. We might make that our number 1 because domestic crisis can be really, really frustrating. And then cabinet effectiveness. This is actually the one I need to get a number 1. Cabinet effectiveness is extremely low right now, and that is problematic. So when we go back here and set these, that is what we're going to be considering. We already saw this situation here. There's a scandal track that, it'll apply at some point. This is the turn sequence. We begin over here and we go down and then up and then down and then up and then down, etc. You can see the year is divided into 4 quarters. So this is January, February, March, April, May, June, July, etc., etc. And then by the time we get down to the end of the turn, that's an entire year gone by. So that's the domestic side of this board. Then we have the international side. One of the things the rulebook says, and I think it's a good explanation, is that this side is where you can win the game by getting points for passing bills. Legacy points are how you essentially check your score at the end of the game, right? We actually start with 5 because we're starting on normal difficulty. So you can win the game by getting a lot of points from domestically pleasing the voters and having a solid legacy. You can get some legacy points from this side of the board, but generally speaking, this is the side of the board where you will lose the game. Remember I said there were a couple of ways that you could automatically lose, like if these wars start or if the nukes are in the wrong place and these wars start? There are other ways that you can lose the game. There are 14 auto loss conditions in this game, and they're primarily in this international sphere. So, that having been said, there are a couple quick things to point out before we move on. The continental US is listed here. You'll also notice that many of these boards list an ally in gray that has their own little tension slot. And then they have a slot for US forces. US forces that are here in the continental US or in these marine zones or deployed into an ally box are safe. US forces deployed into any other boxes on the board are not, people don't like it when you put US forces all over the place. So they have they leave what's called US footprint markers at the end of each turn. So ideally, we don't have anything other than intel advisors and spec ops and maybe an air force. I don't think they leave any footprints deployed in the various regions of the world. But if we're in the middle of a conflict or dealing with terrorists or some other thing, we might have to deal with that. So ideally, we have all our military hiding over here. Unfortunately, we start the game at war. In this case, we start at war with the Taliban. So that's fun. Now we have our continental US here. That is its own special thing. All the other places over here that we see are regions. The Eurozone, Eastern Europe, Central America, South America. These are world regions. The last two is the Russian Federation over in the top right and the People's Republic of China in the center right, and those are the peer nations. So they act similarly to each other, keeping track of what's going on with those countries. And then all these other 9 areas are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 areas are essentially act the same. They've got allies represented by gray. They've got so-called rogue nations. In this case, it's really only Iran, North Korea, and then any rogue states that appear. In this case, this one represents the Taliban, but others can appear over time that can represent unstable states that have been taken over by individuals that want to cause trouble. So that is essentially the situation that we find ourselves in here. So let's begin, and I'll try to explain how it works as we go, and I'll try to keep it moving. Now that we are, 20 some odd minutes in, we'll get started. So we begin with the turn sequence beginning on page 4. Let me bring up my special book here. U.S. Special Activations. We would start with the State of the Union, but that doesn't happen on turn 1. Then we go to the U.S. SOE impact, not on turn 1. So we improve strategic capabilities. That's the first thing that we're doing here. So if the U.S. State of the Economy is at least 5, then we get to roll twice. So we're definitely going to try to improve our cyber warfare. I find that to be one of the most important ones. So we're basically going to roll on a 1 to 5. We will be successful. And we got a 5 result, which is hard for you guys to see, so I'm going to read it out. But it's visible here at the top, and it's in the log. But in this case, a 5 means we were successful, just barely. So our cyber warfare capabilities increase. We can't increase that one twice. And why am I thinking that? I feel like the cyber warfare did not have them that far ahead. But maybe I'm misremembering. Let me double check here. Russia and China. White House POTUS. I'll look it up again in the future. I don't want to have us, sitting here too much. But I swear I remember these tracks being slightly different in my last game. And it seems like it set it up differently. All right, anyway, we'll just go with this. It is what it is. So we've done that. Which other one do we want to do? Being ahead of everybody else in these is pretty important. Let's increase our space warfare, or attempt to increase our space warfare. We got another 5, so we did increase our space warfare a little bit. We're now on par with China. Okay, so we've improved our strategic capabilities, though maybe not far enough. Now we have to set our POTUS cabinet focus. So as mentioned, I think the most important thing to do is get this cabinet effectiveness higher. So I'm going to go ahead and move priority number 1 down there. And domestic crises are very important right now. So I think, you know what? I'm going to move number 1. If you have a domestic major failure, it's really bad. So I'm going to move that there. I'm going to put cabinet focus as number 2. Number 3, we don't have any terror groups. I think Homeland Security is probably the last focus I care about right now. Right now, it's entirely, if we get terror groups here, then it might matter. But I think number 3 should be our press and public relations. Number 4 should probably be our relations with Congress. And number 5 is economics, because our economy is doing pretty well on its own. So that's setting those. Now we get to do one action with each, for me and each cabinet member. So for this, we're going to pull up these charts here. And I kind of wish I could zoom out on these for you, but the way that this works is there is a presidential chart, which we're looking at right now, the presidential master action. I'm about to do an action as POTUS, then I'm going to do an action as vice president, then I'm going to do an action as chief of staff, then secretary of state and secretary of defense. Only POTUS can take the actions on this chart. It's double-sided. However, on the domestic master actions, POTUS, VPOTUS, and the chief of staff can all potentially take this suite of actions. And then in diplomatic, only vice president, POTUS, and secretary of state, and military is only POTUS and secretary of defense. So keep that in mind here. Right now, I think we want to corral the cabinet. We're going to try to improve cabinet effectiveness, because a lot of these other things, it matters what the cabinet effectiveness is. Oh, and you know what we didn't do is set our APs for the turn. When were we supposed to do that? I think we missed it. There we go. Determine how many APs you start the year with. That's the beginning of each turn sequence. I missed that one. So let's do that. We start with 15 as a normal play. And then we get another one. We get based on cabinet effectiveness. So we'll get an extra, what is that, 2? We get an extra 2 from there, which brings us to 17. Then we have very efficient president for an extra 4, which gets us up to 21. That's a pretty nice number, pretty high number for what you normally have. And then plus 2 APs if you have the amazing chief of staff. We don't. The next thing we also missed is applying all these other things at the beginning of the turn. Let's do that. So -2 public approval and -1 relations with Congress at the start of each turn because of our lacking social graces. We apparently make gaffes. And just like that, our approval's down to 36%. Ugh. But we get these good things too. +1 to any ally relationship per turn. So we can improve our Gulf states relationship or our Indian relationship. All the other relationships are very close. I think we're going to improve our Indian relationship because they are at -1 AP, and now that will counteract and deal with that. What else do we get? -2 DRM State of the Union, and we're good. We've got all of these. Now, what does this say? During both focus national... Okay, so that's the only thing we have to worry about now. In the future, this will have an effect. Optionally, not on turn 1. Oh, we immediately try to improve the cabinet. Okay, I missed that in the previous game I played. So we roll on the cabinet improvement table at the beginning of each game. That's what we're doing right now. It's a D6, and it is modified by the domestic value of our chief of staff. And that is it. So it's just a -1 to this D6. It becomes a 2, which means the cabinet effectiveness is improving. Excellent. Now, many of these tracks are what's called trending tracks, meaning it takes 2 successes to actually improve it. So what we did was we went from cabinet effectiveness trending positive, and if we were to get another cabinet effective trending positive, then it would actually move up. and then we would need 2 more to get to 6, etc. So what we've done is we've marked it here with this little marker that says that it's improving. Likewise, it can be worsening, and it takes 2 steps to go back down. But right now, we just managed to increase it there. So now we have to set our focus regions for our international collection, and we have to pull those out of the pieces thing here. There we go. So this is basically like we have a massive apparatus at our hands that's going to be collecting intelligence. And we can simply focus it on 2 regions of the world. We can't look at everything, but I think a solid start is to focus on Central/South Asia, since we have a war going on there. And we'll also focus it in the Middle East, since there are a lot of terror groups and an unstable state and a civil war going on in the Middle East. That's what we're going to go with. Let me check the chat here. Nobody else saying anything yet. All right, so now we will continue on to our actual turn as POTUS. And to that effect, we are going to start by corralling the cabinet. So we can spend 1 action, and we'll spend one of our action points to get an extra -1. So that will give us a -2 on the cabinet improvement table this time. So we spend 1 action point, and we roll again. A d6, yes, that got us down to a 0 or less, because we hit a 2 on the die. We had a -2 from the die roll modifier. So we place another improving, which means our cabinet effectiveness has got up to 5. We started off the year with the president focusing on making sure the staff works well together. In addition, because we got the best possible result, we will be able to improve one of our members of cabinet. So we're going to roll a die and see who gets improved. It's a 3, which means the Secretary of Defense is improved. Fantastic. We flip him over, and now he is a 2 on his military rating instead of a 1. So that means some of these actions that involve military will have better die roll modifiers, because our Secretary of Defense has been given a bunch of special training, or he's been given like a shadow who knows the ins and outs of the military, and he's able to tell him what's going on. That's how I figure it's set up. So that was our POTUS. Now our VPOTUS can choose an action. So can't be any of these. We could have our VPOTUS work on this domestic crisis issue, because if you'll notice, we are 1 step away from domestic failure. And so I think that's a very good thing to deal with before things start getting out of hand. Unfortunately, addressing a domestic crisis is a cabinet effectiveness check. That's going to be rough. Let's see, cabinet effectiveness is now 5, so 50% chance that we're passing, but we get some DRMs. -1 if address a domestic crisis is the number 1 in our thing, and it is. We gave ourselves a number 1 priority there, so it makes it easier to properly address. We've given more resources to it. We don't have domestic focus. Public approval is not 60%, but the vice president or the chief of staff's rating gives us a little bit extra. So we get -1 for this, and -1 for that. So we have a -2 on this roll. So now a 7 or less, a 1. All right. So we passed it, which means that decreases domestic crisis track by 1 box, and we gain public approval for dealing with this domestic crisis. What domestic crisis was it exactly? Let's remember what was in here. It was the party fundraising practices under scrutiny. We appointed like a special in council, and then we made sure that they continued to pursue what was going on. Our transparency has been recognized, and the public now has a 38% approval rating. So of us. So that's good. Okay, so that was our VPOTUS. Now we have to deal with our chief of staff, who could try addressing the domestic crisis again, but I think we might want to deal with our situation in Congress. Improve relations with Congress. I think that's what we want our chief of staff to work on. So we can take 1 action. We can spend an AP. Man, if I don't spend an AP, it might get worse, is the problem. Relations with Congress is not number 1. We're not respected by Congress. What is the current relations with Congress? Is 4 or 5? Yeah. Oh boy, it's 3 or 2. We're gonna have to spend another already. I hate to do this, but I think we have to spend an AP, and we're gonna roll, and it's actually it's actually -1 for spending the AP, but +2 because our relations with Congress are so bad. So here we go. Oh, damn it. That's real bad. It just got worse. We bungled and made things worse. The Chief of Staff, what are you doing? Now our relations with Congress are in the toilet. It's even harder to recover it from there. Moving on to diplomacy, I hope we have a better situation here with the Secretary of State. We've got a bunch of opportunities to do things. A trade agreement could be valuable, but if you notice, that requires a relations with Congress check. It's going to be real hard to get Congress to pass our trade agreement right now when they are not liking us very much. So I think we're going to look at one of these other options. We could try to remove Chinese or Russian influence out in the region. We can't do a summit. We could do some training with an ally. I think actually, we know we're fighting this war against the Taliban, but right now, we don't have the forces to really prosecute that war well. We have a light army, we have a U.S. Air Force, and we've got a spec ops team here. That ain't enough. We're going to need more boots on the ground. So we're going to use this. Oh, no, this is diplomatic. I was thinking of military. Diplomatic. What are we going to do? I think maybe requesting rapid. Oh, that's military. I'm looking at the wrong one again. Crisis relief is always good. The lower these crisis numbers are, the better. Attempt to improve one region's alignment. I'm just going to go with dealing with crises. On the world map, we've got Africa, which is about to have a major crisis here. So we're going to roll a die, and it gets a minus for the diplomatic rating of our Secretary of State. Did we already determine the Secretary of State? Oh, never mind. It's a -1. Oh, and I forgot, each of these guys is going to get another action except for the Secretary of Defense. They do not have another action. Okay, so that action says +1 if Russia or China has an influence in the region. Unfortunately, China has influence in Africa, so their influence counteracts a diplomatic rating. So we're rolling straight up, and we're doing a regional align. Oh no, Jesus Christ, it's over here. Diplomatic rating of Secretary of State. So we're looking for a 6 or less. So it's a 7 or less. We got a 5. Okay, so we fixed this crisis. Whatever, a famine, water shortage, whatever. Hello, Anthony M. Can't watch this live, but definitely going to watch this later tonight. Thanks for doing a tutorial. You're welcome, Anthony. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments when you're done watching later. All right, so we've dealt with everything except the Secretary of Defense, who's going to get another action here. I think the Secretary of Defense's action is going to be move some troops around. So we're going to move a U.S. heavy from Europe down to Central/South Asia. And that's going to help us fight this war. Now, because heavy represents like a full army or army corps, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a large number of troops with all the heavy artillery and tanks you could want. It actually takes 2 turns to arrive, 2 actions. So right now they're just in transit. So that is our military action, was just get them started moving down there. In the near future, we can move other forces down here as well, potentially. Maybe some Marine forces, a carrier, maybe more air forces. We shall see. Keeping in mind that the more boots on the ground we have at the end of the year, the worse it is for us with the U.S. military footprint. Hello, Golden Aura. Everything I can find has Russia and China start on Cyber Warfare 2. Yeah, that's what I thought. It seemed really odd. I might have picked them up and moved them around. Thank you for that. I didn't want to take the time to look through the scenario book while people are waiting here. I appreciate it. So we're fixing that. I must have picked it up and moved it by accident when I was clicking around earlier before the stream started. Hopefully everything else is correct. Okay. So, where were we? Yes, we just finished our military. Now we get an extra action for these 3. Alan Box, Andy Lewis, and Kim Richards each get an extra action. So let's go ahead and figure out how we want to use those. Maybe we want to address a domestic crisis again. I think that's probably what we want to do with our chief of staff. So let's do that again. It's a cabinet effectiveness check, minus 1 for this being our number 1 priority, and number 2 for our chief of staff's rating. So we get a total of minus 2 to the roll. We need a 5, so a 7 or less will do it. We got a 4. Excellent. So we get to remove domestic crisis down to 0. That is very good. Now we're going to do one for our vice president. I think this is going to be a diplomatic action. And what we could do here is try to maybe improve a region's alignment. I don't mind removing... Oh, you know what? Is there a way to reduce tensions? Decrease tensions. That seems like a good thing to do, right? Everybody, let's just chill, okay? We don't need to be so tense. This isn't a problem. Specifically, why don't we reduce China's tensions? They are very... There's 3 of them as a result of that thing there. So choose any of the following targets. An ally, China, Russia, Iran, blah, blah, blah. If we want to reduce an ally's tension, it just removes 2 tension counters from the ally with no roll at all. That is kind of nice. Is there an ally with 2 tensions that is going to be very valuable to us? There is India, but India is only going to get 1 action, so that, well, the tensions don't really affect that action at all. It just increases the chance that their action is going to be very helpful to us, as opposed to aggressive and causing problems. I think China, though, is the right call here, because the fewer tension markers there are, the less aggressive they are when they act. So let's try to reduce this. We get minus 1 per AP spent. We have a Secretary of State with a 1, and that's about it. So we get a minus 1 to the roll, and we're looking for, hopefully, an 8 or less. We got a 2. Excellent, which means a major success, removed 2 tension counters. So we had a nice chat with China and said, help us, help you, and the tensions have been reduced. Hello, Ben Wilk. Do you get 2 focused national intelligence markers? I think you only get 1 to start. I'll double check. I've always gotten 2 in the past, but I think it has to do with, maybe I was playing on easy mode. Let's find out. Thank you for double checking on that, though. Check your strategic capabilities for both cyber warfare and oh, you know what? The reason that I've gotten 2 in the past is because I had a president with the attribute that allowed me to increase a strategic capability, and I got parity with them. So you're right. I think I would only get 1 in this case, because both values are not greater or equal to China at the very beginning of the game, the turn when I got this. So thank you for pointing that out. The attribute does not give me the bonus this time. So where do I want this? I think then I do want it in the place where a war is going on. That does seem like the highest priority. Thank you. All right, so back to this. So we lowered tensions with our vice president. Our domestic situation has been resolved by the chief of staff, which leaves the secretary of state with another diplomatic action. We could decrease more tensions somewhere, but the tensions seem to be, well, you know, we could try to reduce tensions with Russia, because they might act next too, and that could help. So let's try that too. So we get another roll, and we get another minus 1 on the roll. We're not going to spend any APs here. It's a 6 minus 1. I believe that is a success. Yep, a success, remove 1 tensions counter. So Russia has 1 tensions counter now instead of 2. So that was all of our 1 action for POTUS and each cabinet member. Now we move up here, and the good times are over, folks. We got all those things that we got to do. Now it's time for them to act. We roll a die. It is Russia acting first. So we mark that Russia is the one acting here, and China is going to be the one acting here. And in this case, I'm afraid there's not going to be a lot of visuals here, and I apologize for that. I'm just going to try to narrate what's happening, because all of this is happening inside of a book that is not in the Vassal module. So first we check, has Russia won the game yet? And I'd like to take this opportunity to update this chart here, because remember those things that can immediately end the game? This is one of them. If Russia has a base in Eastern Europe, which they can get if they get at least 3 influence in Eastern Europe, and they have a total of 9 or more influence throughout the world, each base counting as 3, and Eurozone stability is less than 5, or NATO and the UK don't have very good relations with us. So either of those 2 things will trigger the third things. If all 3 of those are true, Russia wins the game and we lose immediately, essentially. But in this case, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 Russia counters, influence counters on the board. So they are not yet near the 9 they need for all those other things to matter. So we've checked. They're not winning. Now we continue. Is Russia going to change its posture? Right now, Russia's posture starts at 2 in the normal game, which means they are more aggressive and they do more bad things to the world, and therefore us. This is a moment where they might change their posture, but really it's only going to happen if their tensions are really low and their relations with the US are very good. Then their posture will reset to 1. But right now, we flip all the tensions counters on Russia, total their values, and then resolve the condition that applies. If currently at posture 1, no. If currently at posture 2 and the sum of all flip tension counters is 0, 1, and relations with the US is a 4 or 5, then we'd decrease posture. But unfortunately, that means nothing happens. So we got to get their relations with us up to 4 or 5, and then make sure that their tensions are very low in order to continue. Okay. Based on the sum of the tensions boxes, Russia's relationship with the US may be affected. If the sum is 0 or 1, set a trending positive. So if we keep these tensions low, every time they act, tensions with, or the trend relations with us starts getting better. This is one of those tracks that requires 2 successes to move forward. So before, it was on a negative success. So it was basically 1.5. Now it's 2. If we do it again, it's 2.5. And then again, it'll be a 3. So essentially, that's kind of how it's working. Okay, so relations with the US slightly improved because we've lowered tensions. That was a very good move on our part. Then immediately remove all the tensions counters and replace them. Oops, I grabbed the wrong one there. And replace them with half rounded up. So there was 1, so we replace it with a brand new 1 for next time. After checking for and, if necessary, changing Russia's posture, then we improve Russia's strategic capabilities. We make 2 at posture 1, but 3. Because they're aggressive, they make 3 improvements to their strategic capabilities, and they will do so at a slightly better result. They're funding this war stuff because they're aggressive right now with their posture against us. So we're going to make 3 rolls here. First, they're going to prioritize areas where they're behind us by at least 2 or more steps, and so they're going to roll a die, and on a 1 to 5, they increase their strategic recon and intel gathering. A failure. Excellent. They're going to try again, and they're going to succeed this time. They can't succeed on the track more than once, so they're going to, for their third action, look at the next category, which is if you have 2 or more actions left, attempt to increase both cyber warfare and strategic missile defense. If only one, choose between them randomly. So evens, it's cyber warfare. Odds means it's strategic missile defense. And so they're going to roll on that, and they miss. So luckily, only 1 increase from them this time. Next, they move on to espionage. And just like last time, they make 2 espionage attempts because their relations with the US is 1 or 2 and their posture is 2. They normally would only make 1 espionage attempt, but because things are so bad between us, they make 2. We first have to find out, let's see, for each attempt, roll, apply DRMs. What's the DRM to this roll? It is, where's their cyber warfare? We're on parity, so there's no penalty or bonus there. No penalty or bonus there. I think it's basically a straight up roll, looks like. Yep. So we are going to go ahead and just roll on this table and find out what happens. Again, low rolls generally good for us. It's a 3. They're going to attempt to steal technology. Identify a range strategic capability, and they increase it again. So an 8 is they increase their strategic missiles and missile defense. Ugh. Okay. Not the worst result that could happen, though. The worst result is U.S. counterintelligence identifies major Russians. Actually, oh, I'm sorry. Low is actually good for them because they're the ones rolling. So yeah, that was one of the worst, not the not quite worst result. But anyway, it is what it is. Moving on, they try to improve their economy. They roll a D10, but they get +3 because of the multilateral sanctions. That means the U.S. and other countries are working together to impose these economic sanctions on them, and -1 per Russian influence counter in the Eurozone, Eastern Europe, and or Central South Asia. So 1, 2, 3. So they get a +3 from that, and they get a They get a -3 from that influence there, and they get a +3. So they're rolling straight up on that, which is a 10. Ooh, place a worsening economy counter on Russia. And the Federation Council is not happy. They place extra focus on internal situation and economic inadequacies. Reduce Russia actions by 1 AP when calculating the Russia actions below. Whew, that's a very good roll for us. Their economy's going down, and it means that they're going to have less resources with which to make trouble. So in this case, they're going to get one more than their current economy level. So they're going to start with 5. And then they're going to be modified by their relations with the US, which is actually a +1. So they're going to go from 5 to 6, but then they lose 1 because they rolled so badly on their economy situation. So they're back down to 5. So I'm going to try to keep track of how many they've got here in the log. So they've got 5 left. Then we go down the list of actions that they are going to be doing. High CPU usage detected. Yes, I know. Thank you. So they're going to spend... let's see, dependent actions. Terror in Central South Asia. That does not apply. Next, they're going to try to quell rising internal dissent, adding 1 to the roll. They got a 5. That has no effect. If they're at war, no effect. Possible Syrian intervention, no effect. New conflict in Eastern Europe or Central/South Asia. If there's a rogue state of any level in either region that is not already at war, there is a rogue state in Central/South Asia that's representing the Taliban, but it is already at war, so this is also ignored. We go on to the remaining action hierarchy, and they have all 5 remaining actions. So they launch a cyber attack on the United States or its allies. Let's find out who the target is. A 9 means the target is Eastern European democracies. We have parity with them in cybersecurity, which is important because they'd roll on an even better table if they were ahead in cybersecurity. That seems to be one of the most important strategic capabilities that I've seen in this game. You roll with that effect quite a lot. Okay, now we find out what success looks like. An 8+ is failure. Anything else is success. Oh, we lucked out. The Eastern European democracies are safe. Now they get to roll 3 times on this chart because they're at posture 2. So they're rolling again. What's the new target? Also the Eastern European democracies. And it's a 2 this time, which is a success. In that case, they get to add 1 Russian influence counter here in Eastern Europe. That is bad. Remember, 9 of those is game over for me, so I have to curtail that whenever possible. Now they're going to roll on this cyber attack 1 more time, and it's a 3 this time. Target U.S. political cohesion. Come on, let's see an 8+. Yes, 8+ means they failed in trying to weaken the U.S. political cohesion. I needed that because everything else has been going against me in the domestic market there. Okay, that's their cyber attacks. That was 1 action. They have 4 remaining. They're going to spend 1 more right now, means they're down to, oops, I'm rolling for no reason. I'm trying to hit the 3 button. There we go. They're going to have 3 left after we spend the next one. Now they're going to initiate multi-domain, low-intensity gray zone attacks to expand Russia's influence in neighboring regions. Think before the Ukraine war, how the Donbass region had like separatists that were essentially funded by Russia and may even include actual Russian like spec ops forces pretending to be natives that want to be separate. So this is the kind of thing that this is representing. So if any regions have 3 or more Russian influence, no. They're going to now try to expand Russian influence. No base in Eastern Europe and 3 or more in Euro. So they're going to try and do it in the Eurozone as a result of the current situation. And if there are less than 3 Russian influence counters and no base in the Eurozone, that's what they're going to do. So they're going to roll a D10, and on a result of 10 or less, place a Russian influence counter. So they're going to add our alignment number. So D10 plus 6, they're looking for 10 or less. We got a 12. Okay, that cost them the action, but it didn't have a good effect for them. So now they're going to take another action and have 2 left. Compromise to facilitate removal of sanctions. They're going to find out. If Russians' relations with the U.S. is 4 or 5, they immediately remove all sanctions. If any sanctions are currently on Russia, roll a D10. -1 if Russia is currently at posture 2. They are, so that's a -1. -2 if Russian strategic missile defense capability is 2 or more boxes higher than the U.S. It's only 1 box higher than the U.S., so that does not apply. -2 if Russia is on the Russia +2 box in the Russia NATO box. They are not on the Russia 2 box, so that does not apply either. +1 if Eastern Europe stability is 6 or higher. It is not, it's 5. +1 if Euro stability is 7 or higher. It is not. +1 if US no. +1 if this is the last Russian action available. Almost. +2 if there are multilateral sanctions marker on Russia. So it's a -1 +2 for a total of +1 to the roll, which is a 10. The West stands firm and Russia blinks. If Russian posture is currently 2, decrease posture to 1. That is a fantastic roll for us. The sanctions worked. They are now going to be more peaceable. Not actually peaceable because they're Russians, but more peaceable. All right? So what else happens? Remove all sanctions. So we return that to the cup. If the track is already at 1, blah, blah, blah. I think that's it. That's all that happens. If posture is already 1, decrease sanctions on Russia, blah, 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 by 1 box, remove all sanctions. If that track is already at 1, then remove blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's it. That is, then they get 1 action left. Secure/exploit/militarize the Arctic. No DRMs for this. They just roll and they get a 9. Russian expansion attempts rile neighbors, leading to increased legal conflicts, naval exercises, and budgets/research for Arctic operations. Remove 1 Russian influence from the Eurozone. Russia has fully bungled almost every roll here. This is not as bad as they normally roll. Usually things get much worse when Russia acts. Here, it actually got better. If you take it in its complete totality here. All right, so what else? Remove 1 Russian influence from the Eurozone. Add 2 tensions on Russia, though. That's going to make them, less good in the future. So they have 3 tensions for next time they act. Let's see. And then place a DARPA/rapid capabilities counter on naval forces training and tech strategic capability. So these are things that allow me to get free rolls. We're essentially assigning research grants to these particular things. What was the other one? Tech. Oh, naval training and tech is the same. Is what it's called. And then place a trending anti-US counter on Russia's relations. I mean, that part is bad, because we want Russia's relations to be up here. It helps us a lot. We want their relationship to be up here. We want their posture to be here. And we also want their economy to be here. But usually the things that you do that hurt their economy also hurt relations. The things that you do to help relations also tend to help their economy. So it's kind of, you just got to accept that they're going to be acting more times, but they're going to be doing less damage each time, if you look at it that way. Okay, so that was their last action, which they, again, bungled spectacularly. Lovely. So we pop back over here. That was Russia's action. Now we get any 3 actions before we get hit with potentially like 8 more crisis cards, give or take. So now we have to figure out what we want to do. I think increasing our relations with Congress is a very important thing to do. I'm going to spend the AP to give ourselves that bonus to improve relations with Congress. That way it can't possibly get worse. Well, actually, it still can, because even with the 1 that we're spending, we're still a +1 in this roll, which is going to be a D6. So, okay, that's a 3. So on a 3, +1 to the track. Whew. All right, that gets us up to here. Unfortunately, we can only do that 1 time. So he may only be used once per activation segment. So we've got 2 more actions, and I should mark these. We've got 2 more actions that we can spend on pretty much anything, right? I think the international situation is mostly okay, but I'm going to finish sending this heavy, with a military action to move forces, I'm going to finish sending this heavy army unit over to fight the war in the Taliban. We want that war to be over, quick, and not turn into a guerrilla jungle, not jungle, but guerrilla desert, rocky cave war that it could turn into. So the bigger our forces there, the more likely we are to end it faster, hopefully. If we can end it and then pull those troops out by the end of the year, there won't be that big an impact. So one of the actions that we can do, which actually might help us here, is use military professionals to treat disease, build schools and clinics, or create other infrastructure in a war-torn region. So we have to target an area, a region that has a war or a civil war, and where the U.S. has been at war anytime during the turn, and +1 if China or Russia has an influence counter in the region. They do. Maybe we should try to get rid of that first. So we're going to do a diplomatic action to try to remove Chinese or Russian counters from the region. Here's the thing. It's going to use a regional alignment. That's not great, but we're going to try it anyway. It's on the 5. Oh, we cannot even try to remove their influence unless there's a 7 or 8. Or a 6 if okay, so maybe we'll try to improve the region's alignment. Yeah, this is going to do double duty for us. So we're going to try to build schools and hospitals and things in this war-torn region with the U.S. military. So we're going to roll a d10 and going to be +1, -1. So it's a straight up roll. It's a 3. That's a really good roll. Place a trending pro-U.S. counter. So that got rid of the previous counter there. Or receive a UN goodwill counter. -1 to regional crises in the region. If the regional crises are already at 0, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Loving it. I think we should do that again with our last action. I think that's a really good option. So let's roll again and hope we get a 1 or a 2 this time. A 4. A 4 is good too. Place a trending pro-U.S. counter. I think this time we might grab a UN goodwill counter and lower regional crisis again. At the end of the turn, every place where regional crises are at 0, things get better. Terror groups go away, and if there aren't enough terror groups, then the stability goes up. All things are good if you can get regional crisis down to 0 by the end of the turn. So we get a UN goodwill counter because we did good works with the U.S. military in those areas, and that is going to help us when we get to the UN acts step. We'll be able to spend that counter to do some extra actions, which is very good. Okay, that is all of our actions here. We're down to 0. We get to do all the good fun stuff. Now we get to draw these chits. 2 crisis cards. You got it. Let's draw one. Here's the first one. European banks invest/divest from Russia. If there are no sanctions counter on Russia, there aren't, and Eurozone state of the economy is 6 or higher, there isn't. Otherwise, divest. Place a worsening economy counter on Russia and add 2 tensions counters to Russia and 1 tension counter to each of NATO and UK. So we'll draw these for the UK and NATO. And then, what did that say? Russia's the only one that gets a worsening economy counter, but they do get 2 tensions. Oh, their economy just got even worse. They're in a recession now. And so they are getting 2 more tension counters. The next time Russia acts is going to be pretty bad unless we can do something about those tensions. We might have to have some kind of a summit with them. All right, and then this event goes to the discard pile. So that's event number 1. Event number 2 is Fed to raise interest rates, make a state of the economy check. So we want 6 or less. Oh, that didn't work. Place a worsening economy counter on the U.S. state of the economy and -1 approval. So increasing the interest rate did not really help. Make a relations with Congress check. Yeah, right. I got to get a 3 or less. Oh, we made it. Whew. It could have gotten worse. It could have resulted in a contentious congressional hearing, which highlights a rising star amongst the opposition. Okay, we managed to avoid the worst case scenario. Let's discard this into the reshuffle pile per the instructions. And now, because we got a plus chit here, like 90% of them are plus chits, we draw again. Oh, NSA winds up with good things, I think. Let me go ahead and scroll down to the appropriate thing in this other list. Let's see. NSA. Draw the top 2 crisis cards from the deck, choose one and remove it permanently from the game, reflecting NSA Intercept Intel's early warning that has allowed you to avert the crisis in the card. Place the other card in the reshuffle pile. This is a fantastic one to get. So let's see. We know about the following 2 things. Violence in Kashmir is escalating, or Greece defaults on massive debt to German banks. which one of these is worse? So worsening economy on the Eurozone SOE, +1 regional crises. If Eurozone SOE is 4 or less, it is, I think. Or if Russia's is blah, blah, blah. Russia comes to the aid of Greece, +1 Russian influence-linked economies. Yeah. So this is kind of bad. Increase the India-Pakistan conflict track by 1 box, place 2 tension counters on China and India. That one's a little worse, I think, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and send this one to the reshuffle pile. This one is going to be discarded forever. So that is hiding over here if we ever wanted to check it out again, but it's gone from the game. Thank you, NSA. And we got one more draw. Cascading Event 3, which is going to result in a Cascading Event 2. It's going to be one of those ones that we did earlier. It is a random pull. Let's see what it is. Your party fundraising practices under scrutiny. Choose either admit you bent some fundraising rules, lose public approval, and remove one friend in Congress, or the crisis deepens. +1 domestic crisis, -2 approval, and place a tensions counter. Now, the friends we have in Congress, they're not great. They're not that great, is what it comes down to. So, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's admit wrongdoing. Let's cop to our problems here. We remove one friend. It'll be this guy, Jalen Jones lady. She's not so great. She is a moderate, though. That's disappointing. And then we lose 2 public approval. Oh, God, we're down to 32%. That's real bad. But then we get rid of this. This is now discarded forever. We don't have to have the National Committee chair indicted, which is what would happen if the crisis is left to deepen. Okay. That wasn't the worst outcome from these things. And the good news is, now that we're down here, now we're popping up here, and we get a bunch of good things in a row with only one bad thing happening here. All of the blue is good. It gives us opportunities to do things. The brown and the red is bad. So, in this case, a group of allies and rogues act. And unfortunately, this is going to be another one of those situations where you're just going to have to listen to me follow through this sequence because there's nothing on the board for you to look at. This is Group D. That means Canada, the Gulf states, and rogue nations are going to all act together. So Canada's relationship with the U.S. is very close. Therefore, we get to choose 2 joint actions. We could try to locate terror groups in the continental U.S., that's not super helpful because there's no terror groups to locate. So unless they're being very sneaky, you got to watch out with those guys. By the way, again, any questions you guys have, throw them out my way. Let's see. We can attempt to stabilize the region. That's not super helpful because this region doesn't have a stable box. Now, does it say anything about Canada activating? No, it doesn't say. They have to work within the continental U.S. So, okay. The other options we have, though, they could try to help us do humanitarian aid around the world. So that's what we're going to do. So what places have crises that we can get rid of? I think, we should try the Middle East. So this is a straight up roll, and a D, 1, 2, 8 is a success. We got a 3. That means we take this crisis down 1 peg here in the Middle East. It's a little bit away from a major crisis. At first, I got these major crises like twice and then rolled on that table, but happened to roll very low. And I'm like, these aren't so bad. And then I rolled high on that table and I'm like, these are horrifying. I don't want any of these anymore. So thank you, Canada, for helping us deal with that. I think the other one they're going to do is they're going to roll on Asia and Pacific and try to lower that regional crisis level as well. They got a 1, so they were able to do that. Send humanitarian aid to whatever those crises are. It's just a generic crisis track, and if you saw certain things, add them, then, that's helpful to remember. Okay, after Canada, we get the Gulf states, and that is the Gulf states / Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, we are only close allies, not very close with them. So what that means is they only get 1 joint action. And this is one of the few actions that can actually increase regional stability, so I'm going to try for it. Unfortunately, it's only got a 40% chance of success. 1 to a 4. Got it! Yes! Stability is very hard to increase, and this is one of the only ways to do it, and we did it. So, stability being high, super valuable to have in these regions. Okay, now, oh, you know what I forgot to do? Canada gets a unilateral action. They have no tensions markers, so they get a -1 on this track. Yeah, interesting. So they're just going to roll with a -1. They get a 5. Trade, economic impact in the Eurozone, D10, or Con US. So it turns out it's going to be in the Eurozone. Place economy improving marker on the affected state of the economy track. Okay, so the European economy is doing better. If selected SOE is already 7, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Canada, it's very interesting the way that these charts work, right? The Canada unilateral action table is modified by whatever tensions they have. If they have a lot of tensions markers, they're going to add a lot of DRMs to that dice roll. And so that is more likely to cause them to act in ways that are militaristic. If the roll is really low, which can be a result because they have 0 tensions at all, then they tend to act in ways to improve economies and stability and things like that. So it's a very cool way to do it. Now the Gulf States has a similar thing, except the Gulf States does have a tension marker. So let's flip that. No effect! Excellent. So that means no tension counters. So they get a -1. Or does that mean that they still get a... Yeah, I still think they'll get the -1. So instead, let's see. Half rounded down of the current status of the Gulf States versus Iran track. So this is a +1. And that's it. They just get a +1 to their roll. Their roll is an 8, so that's a 9. If they're at war. So build air and naval forces. Increase the relative strength versus Iran, 1 in the favor of the Gulf states. So now the relative strength is equal if Iran and Saudi Arabia were to go to war. Next, increase their conflict status track by 1 box. Uh-oh. If this causes war, blah, blah, blah. So that is the end of the Gulf states action. Next, we get rogue activation. Yep, so we just roll a d10 to find out if it's going to be rogue states that are activating or if it's going to be North Korea or Iran that are going to be activating. 7 means North Korea or Iran is going to activate, whichever has more tensions counters. So North Korea has 1, Iran has 1, so we're just going to choose randomly. So evens for Iran is going to be Iran. Consult their action table. So Iran's getting an extra activation this round as a result of all of this. So we flip over their tensions marker and find out what the situation is. It's going to be a 1. Send that back. So they get a +1 to this roll. And that seems to be the only situation. So we add that and you get a 4 up to a 5. Increase oil to China. So China gets an influence here because they're forming a closer relationship with Iran. And place an economy improving counter on China's state of the economy track. Okay. So the last thing I think we need to do is check unstable states in Central South Asia and Asia Pacific. No unstable states here. We do have 1 unstable state here, so we roll a die. Regional stability is 5, so that has no effect. So we roll and we get a 10. Ooh, flip unstable state into a civil war. So that sucks. We've now got a civil war in Central/South Asia. Could be, I don't know, Pakistan maybe? Bangladesh? Afghanistan is kind of being represented by this war, so I don't know what this civil war is over here, but it's probably Pakistan. All right, that sucked, but because civil wars usually have knock-on negative effects, but we're done with that portion of the round, and now we go on to this, which is POTUS/cabinet focus. So now we're going to go through all these and resolve them. Let's zoom in on this so you can see what's going on. So first, we're going to start with priority number 1. It succeeds on a roll of 1 to 5 with a d6. 5 is success. So -1 to domestic crisis. If already at 0, which it actually is, gain 2 presidential action points. Beautiful. We're running out of those, so I'll take it. So we're back up to 20. And number 2, roll to improve our cabinet. And this is a 1 to a 4. Yes, we got it. Now we roll a d6 to determine what's happening. A 1 means place an improving marker on the cabinet effectiveness. Beautiful. All right. Focus number 3. Only succeeds on 1 to a 3. Got it. Either +3 to public approval, or +1 to public illusion and +1 to media relations. Let's take the media relations and the 1 public approval. That's going to give us dividends in the long term, I hope. Okay. Next, we've got number 4, which also succeeds on a 1 to a 3. We missed that one. Dang. Number 5 is a 1 to a 2. We got that one. Place an improving economy marker. Excellent. Excellent work. And Homeland Security succeeds only on a 1. Wow, we got that one too. We got an unusually large number of those, I think. Oh, it could be Sri Lanka. Thank you, Satir94. Could be Sri Lanka. That's true. Okay, so that was Homeland Security. Decrease 1 terror group in the U.S. by 1 level. If none, +1 to Homeland Security and -2 public approval. So our Homeland Security goes up, but people don't like it. They got the TSA beefed up, I guess. Not happy about that. Okay, so that is our cabinet focus. So in the first 3 months, they were able to get all of that extra work done. Good job, everybody. Unfortunately, the media relations goes down again because they're fickle. And when we get to this box, we lose 1 media relation. Next, we got 2 domestic actions before a legislative segment. One of them has to be to try to improve the relations with Congress, which, again, I'm going to spend that action point to attempt to do this. It's still with a +1, so it's probably not going to go very well because I think, what do we need? It's a D6, right? Yeah, we need a 2 or less to improve it. Oh, it just made it worse again. God, this is terrible. I think the one thing we did miss was improve relations with Congress. That's going to have to be our number 1 focus next time. I think it has to be, right? We are just... It wasn't that bad when we set these priorities. It just got really bad right after we set them, I think, if I remember correctly. So, okay, what's our other domestic? Can we do that again and try to improve it again? Because it can't get worse. Nope, only used once. So maybe we could try to discredit or dissuade a congressional opponent or encourage bipartisanship. I think we could try to discourage or dissuade a congressional opponent. That might be our best choice here. This one's tricky. If public approval is 60% or greater, it's better. So we could get a... Okay. If relations with Congress is bad, this is very bad. We don't want to do the scandal. We don't want a scandal. We do not want a scandal. That would be bad. We could address a lingering domestic issue and get rid of this. It's just sort of a thing that we can do. This is not currently a problem, but it could become a problem. So why don't we get rid of it now so we don't have to worry about it later? Because I don't have a lot else to do here. If I can't improve relations with Congress, I could improve bipartisanship. Let's try that. 1 action plus 1 AP. Sure. Ugh. I hate spending the AP for this, but it is what it is. Roll a D6, and whatever we get, okay, that worked. Move bipartisan cooperation counter 1 to the right. All right, that is very good. That's going to help us, I think, in the upcoming legislative session. So, speaking of upcoming legislative sessions, that's where we're at here. So, there's no pending bills. We skipped the first 2 steps. In the next 2 steps, if you pass or sign a blank, blah, blah, blah. Now we have to do the how the sausage is made roll, which is like, okay, that's fun. The Congressional Maneuvering and Drama Table. Wouldn't you like a game that had a Congressional Maneuvering and Drama Table? What is the situation here? It's a -1 because our bipartisanship is very good, so that was actually quite useful. We get a -1 now. But if relations with Congress at 3 or less, it's a +2. Another +2 if it's less than 30. We just barely avoided that penalty for having such an unpopular situation here. So, +1 for that, +2 for that, -1 for that. So a total of +2 to this roll. It's going to be very bad. A 7. That's almost the worst result, guys. That's almost the worst result here. Party hardliners gain momentum in partisan infighting. Move the bipartisan co-op 1 to the left. Place 1 tensions counter on the POTUS cabinet. Ooh, okay, it goes here. I flip it over so it's no more visible, but it has no effect. The counter just simply represents that the next time we make rolls, the Homeland Security one is not going to have an impact. Okay, what else? There's a lot of stuff here. If public approval is greater than, oh God, no, -2 public approval. Oh, that's a public, I'm sorry, that was a media blitz. What else is this? 1 tensions counter. Oh, specifically on the related with Congress focus. That's terrible. It goes here specifically. Ouch. And then we roll a d6 to see which party it affects. A 4 means it affects the opposition. Move the leftmost opponent's legislation, blah, blah, blah. Randomly remove 1 opponent. Okay. We got a little lucky there at the end. So this party hardliners gaining momentum is actually affecting our opponents here. But, yeah, still not great. Our approval is so bad. We have to do something about that. We're going to have to use the bully pulpit next time we get the presidential option to try to improve things there. So, one of these is randomly removed. So, evens, odds. Oh, damn it. The moderate got removed. That sucks. Okay. Introduce new bills. We're going to, because it's a split Congress, and we're going to remove 2 bills. We roll a d6 to choose who goes first. Evens is me. So they are going to go first, and they are going to choose the highest public priority, which is education reform. So they're going to grab education reform and make it an opponent bill that gets added here. And in a split Congress, it goes here. So opponent's bill is in this box. Then I get to propose a bill, and I think I'm going to propose increasing NASA funding, and it also goes here if I'm not mistaken. Okay, place the bill, blah, 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 in the 0 box at the split Congress. Yeah. Then we determine the media result. Total the media relations. It's even, so no media result. There's no scandal, so we skip that step. Adjust bipartisan cooperation. If it's a tie, nothing happens. So now we move on to the next period. So that was not the worst legislative segment. If we can just get a handle on our relations with Congress, which apparently we can't, things will get better. So we're now drawing the 2 more crisis cards, which is about average for these things. So let's see. Summit with Canadian Prime Minister tackles regional alliance and security concerns. -1 if you have an ally. Oh, I have the ally's best friend, don't I? I do. And I used that on India, didn't I? Yeah, I did. That's right. -1 if I spend a. So I've already gotten -2 on this. Yeah, we're just going to roll with a -2. We're not going to spend any AP on this. So that is a 5. So summit successful. Agreement strengthens anti-terror border cooperation in process. Well, no effect. But you know what? I will take a no effect card 10 times out of 10 based on the other things that can come out of here, like natural disasters and such. Okay. Rash of bombings of government buildings in Manila. All right, so let's drag this down here because it's going to affect Asia Pacific here. +1 to regional crises. Increase any level 3, 2, or 1 terror group. There aren't any. If there are none, place a new level 2 terror group there. Ouch. Then roll a d10, a 2. Philippine government asks for us U.S. counter-terror help. If you already have a special ops unit in Asia Pacific or choose to now send one with a free move, reduce the terror group in the region by 1 level. I think that is what I want to do. I have a spec ops troop here in the main area, so let's go ahead and do that. Terror group goes down. Oh, hang on. I did not add a new one. I didn't see there were already 2 here at the start of the game. So what actually should happen is increase this level 2 to a level 3, and then this roll wound up reducing it by 1 level. Thank God, because level 3s are pretty difficult to get out. All right. So that was our second event, and again, not bad for crisis card standards. So next, we get to do our Focus National Intelligence section, and that is going to be rolling on this table. The DRMs include how our current cyber situation is working, but we get no bonuses or penalties there. Actually, we get 1 bonus for this strategic recon intel gathering being higher than our opponents. So we're going to roll for the one place we have an FNI, which is here. We roll, it's a 4, which is effects on terrorism in the region. Move a level 3, 2, or 1 to the locating box. Nice. Then move a different one to the gathering box. All right, we are in a position to knock out those terror groups pretty soon. If there's a civil war in the region, you may choose to share intel with the UN in order to get them to intervene. Make an immediate broker peace talks roll in the UN for the chosen civil war. Yeah, this sounds good. We're going to try to broker peace here with an overall DRM of -2. All right. All right. That's good. Here we go. So there is a civil war going on here. I think this is the civil war in Syria is what's being represented here. So we roll with a -2, which is a 3. That's pretty good. It's a ceasefire. So we replace this civil war with a civil war ceasefire marker and decrease regional crises by 1. There you go. We brokered some peace. Good job, everybody. Yep, that's all happened there. And we're done with the F&I segment. They're ready to go on to the next segment. Any 4 diplomatic or military actions. So, diplomatic or military. This is the last chance. Well, not the last chance. It's one of the last chances we get to do stuff in preparation for this war with Taliban being resolved. So, ideally, we would have 24 strength here in South Asia, or Central/South Asia, to deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan. If we have 24, that's a 4-to-1 advantage. So right now we have 4 from these UN troops, 5, 6, 9, 10, 16. We want to get to at least 18. So let's use some of these military actions to move things. Oh, I'm sorry. We have 18. I forgot the carrier that is here does affect that. So I think the fastest and easiest way is to move a second carrier to the Indian Ocean and to move a USMC to the Indian Ocean. But if they're operating from the carriers, they only have a benefit of 2. So now we are at 24 exactly, if my math is correct. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, plus 6. Oh, 16 plus 6 brings us just barely to 22. So we could do one more action and bring over another U.S. Air Force to help us guarantee. Or we could do a cyber attack on them. A cyber attack can have blowback, though. This is an easier way to just overwhelm them with air power. So we're going to do that. I think that is our second military action. And it's going to be, just going to make sure I did it right. Move non-carrier forces. Or a total of 2. Yes, correct. U.S. forces boxes. Okay, yep. So that was 2 of our military/diplomatic actions. What else do we want to do out there? I think we might want to take advantage of the fact that these terror groups just got located. So one more action is going to be used to attempt to locate more intel on this level 2 terror group and lock it in. So a D10 with 2 -1s is, a 7. Does that still apply? Nope, that's failure. We're going to try one more time since there's not a thing that says that we can't. Haha, fails again. Damn. These guys are sneaky. We can't get them to the target fist box. We can't do a raid. We can do a drone strike when they're here, but it's not, there's better chance of casualties collateral damage if we do that. So we're done with that. So now we move up to draw one chit, and it's more crisis. More crisis here. All right. And a crisis card. It's a cascading event. Plays 2 tension counters on China and Japan because Japan clashes with China over disputed islands. Give me tell me another one. All right, 2 tension counters on China and Japan. All right, and then Japan gets 2. All right, and that's the only thing that happens now. But when it comes back out, having removed Chinese influence in Asia Pacific, we will potentially be able to get rid of this event. That's our goal here. Getting rid of this Chinese influence in Asia Pacific. That's our new goal. So this goes to deck 2. So that was number 1. Number 2, another cascading event. +1 domestic crisis. Plays 2 tension counters. Oh, gosh, that's awful. So another domestic crisis. We get to add 2 tension counters here. 1 on 5 and 1 on 6. Making those less effective in the future. Decide whether to spend 0, 2, or 4 APs and then roll a d6 and subtract that number. So this is a major quake hitting Los Angeles. Oh, wait a minute. I can ignore this natural disaster. Once per game. Oh, a terrorism card. Never mind. You can't ignore a natural disaster. The NSA has prevented that earthquake. Don't ask us how. Okay, no. We do have to suffer this. So if we spend a bunch of resources, presidential action points, we can maybe make this less devastating. So let's do it. I got our public approvals in the toilet. We cannot take the chance. So we'll spend 4, bringing us down to 14 AP, and we're not even halfway through the thing yet. So we are hoping for a 0 or less on this D6. Oh, fuck, 1 to 3. Well, we didn't have the other 4+ there, at least. That would have been -4 public approval, and then it would have come back as a 2. Oh, it comes back as a 2 anyway. Cleanup costs and concerns. Place 1 tensions counter on opponents. You may spend 3 APs. If you choose or do not have enough, then, oh god, this is terrible. So we didn't quite get the outpouring of donations and volunteerism. That's too bad, but it could have been worse. So this is one of the ones. Okay, I gotta take a picture of this because this is one of the ones that is not properly cascading. And I think that might be because it is a natural disaster and not a cascade. So I'm going to save this and fix it inside the Vassal module in the future. But for now, let's go back to the chat so I can see what's going on there. Okay, so this is going to have to be manually added to the 2 box. All right, that was our second draw. Now there's a plus symbol on this, so we got to draw again. And there's a plus symbol on that. There are so few counters without a plus symbol, I don't know why they bothered putting it in there. That rule seems to have no real effect. You always draw more. So 2 more cascading, or 2 more events. Hopefully not cascading events. What is this one? U.S. companies leap ahead with new reusable quick launch rockets and space technologies. Sounds like a good thing. Automatically complete advanced level 1 of the Space and Colonization Greater Society Project as if you had just passed it through Congress as a good bill. Very cool. Okay. The space. So, let me see if there's any more details to that. Immediately receive the unique benefits listed for it on the Greater Society Initiatives chart, then place an improving economy counter on our economy. Check. Add 1 tensions counter to Russia and China. They don't like that we've got really cool space tech. They're jealous of Elon. Send us Elon, they say. Okay, so now I have to look up another chart. Sorry about that. It's on D7. Greater Society Initiative, Level 1, Space. +1 strategic recon ability. Excellent. Oh, and I have to then also get the benefit of it being a good bill that I'm signing, right? Unless... Does it matter that it's a good bill? If you pass it, it only has 2 levels that give us effects. I guess good bill meaning that it's not worth any bonus legacy points for signing it. That's my best bet. Okay, anyway, we get all these other things on this chart here. Immediately receive the listed benefits. So what else? +3 public approval. Place a trending pro-US counter in any region with at least one very close ally, because we're sharing space tech with them. Let's think. Well, I don't like that the Middle East is trending downwards, and we do have one very close ally in Israel. So I think we're going to increase that trend there to get rid of that. Okay. Oh, it says good bill in here. Okay, so let's get the 3 public approval before I forget. That's very important. We're now up to 36%. Huzzah. And we get 3 legacy points. 1, 2, 3. First legacy points we've gained so far. Okay. Great job, everybody. We're into space. And this is going to keep coming back. This is a good cascading event. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. Nice. Nice. Okay, go into deck number 2. I don't even remember what number that was now. That was the first of our new rolls here. That's what it was. We're on number 2, I believe, of card pulls. All right, the new card, all-out rebel assaults in Pakistan. Oh. Okay. So, +2 regional crisis in Central/South Asia. Wow. Place 2 tension counters in India. Ugh. Roll a d10. You may spend 1 AP or 1 UN goodwill to subtract 1 from the roll. 1 to 4 government counterattacks, rebels retreat. I'm going to spend the AP because I think... Let's hold on. What do we got? Chinese might intervene. They get adding influence. Yeah. We gotta stop the Chinese from getting more influence in there. We want to get rid of that influence, as I recall. Actually, this is the one we need to get rid of, but more is still bad. Okay, so we roll a d10, subtracting 1. We need a 5 or less for the best result. Oh no, it's an 8. Rebels capture key cities. Government fractures. Place a civil war counter. Another one. Ugh. -1 stability. Oh, didn't we just fix that? Oh, no. I think we fixed it over here, actually. Adjust relative strength on India, Pakistan. 1 box in India's favor. It doesn't say what we do with this. So I guess we discard it. Yeah, these are the only... Yeah. So now we... 1 box in India, Pakistan's favor. So discard. India, Pakistan. 1 box in India's favor for relative strength because Pakistan's descended into civil war. Okay. Next, we're pulling another shit. Random regional crisis. Oh, hello, Drew. Fun to see good crisis cards and not the bad stuff. That's true. Yeah, I like that one. Every once in a while, you get the good cascading card, and you're like, yes. There's so many cards. There's got to be at least one other good one. Okay. So this one here, random regional crisis. We roll 1d10 to determine which region. A 9 is Africa. Seems like a commonplace for a crisis. Once the region identified, move the regional crisis level at the bottom +1. It's up to 3. And that's all that happens, it looks like. Good deal. Okay. So that's the end of the crises here. Now we get any 3 actions. One of them is probably going to be pulling Africa back from the brink. I think we're going to start with that. So let's start with diplomatic crisis relief. So we need a 7 or less. Okay, number 2. Got it. All right, so we pulled them back from the brink. Now we got 1 action left on this on this turn. And then there's a core support check. I think do we spend it trying to improve relations with Congress? I think we actually instead should use it to improve. So there's a domestic action that we can use here. Number 4? No. Remove 1 tensions counter from POTUS/cabinet focus. Number 8. I can remove 2 tensions. Let's see. It's the economy one, huh? Economy's doing pretty well. I'm not going to spend the AP. I'm just going to spend the action, and it simply removes 1 tensions counter, and it does it in highest to lowest, or lowest to highest, rather. But the highest priority gets removed. So this means that improving relations with Congress is now possible when we get to this step over here. Will it continue to be possible by the time we get over there? Who knows? Oh, man, you know what the other thing we should do? In lieu of that, actually, instead of that, since we didn't roll yet, we should try to earn some, like, awesome goodwill with the world. UN speech to create goodwill. We have the orator attribute, right? This is a good one for us to do. So -1 if we have the orator attribute. So we need an 8 or less. We got it. Okay. So add a UN goodwill counter or place a trending or US counter. I want to add the UN goodwill counter. UN goodwill counters are great. And we're about to head into one of those sections where they matter. So next we go to terror or chaos. And it's going to be terror today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, the Terror Show. Let's see, WT1 for terror. And after we get to the end of activation phase 2, I think that's where we'll end for tonight. So we're just going to go through this next thing here. Okay. So terror acts. When you roll a terror acts, do all of the following things if there's a rogue state counter on the map. There is. It's the damn Taliban that we haven't taken care of. Increase the regional crisis, any region containing a rogue state, by 1 box. Okay. Consolidation of networks. In each region where there's at least 2 level 1 terror groups, remove 1 set of them and replace them with a level 2. Ugh. What are you guys doing? Okay, so we remove these and replace it with a level 2. That is what it is. If 2 terror groups are in the intel track of a region, put the level 2 terror group in the lower box of the 2. Okay, so that doesn't... Make a terror acts roll on the terror acts table below. 1d10. A 6. Terror group expands. Increase the highest level terror group on the map, decide randomly for ties, by 1 level. And then create a new level 1 terror group in a random region. So let's do the random region first. 8. So a new level 1 terror group appears in here. Boy, this is terrible. I haven't had this happen before. I rolled chaos every time so far. And now I have to find the highest level terror group. There's a lot of 2s. I don't think there are any 3s. So we have to decide randomly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on a d6, 2. So I said 1, 2. So this one goes up by 1. Again, we just dealt with that bastard. And then if there's a rogue state on the map, export terror. Roll a d10 to export terror as follows. Ay-yi-yi. The United States. If there's a level 1 or a level 2 terror group in Con-US, randomly increase 1. Otherwise, add a new terror group to the U.S. A cell. A cell has appeared in our home. Good thing our homeland security is so high. Wait, it didn't do anything? Actually, what was that roll? Is that a 10? That was a 10. Never mind. The terror group went to China. I got it wrong. Okay, I'll take it. China now has -1 AP in the future. Because they have to deal with the terror group. Okay, not me. Yay! Next up, ally/rogue group asks, and then the UN is going to help us out. This is a good phase. A lot of good stuff can happen to us. Let's see what Group C brings to bear. That is Australia, Israel, India, and then rogue states. So Australia, being an ally with a very close relationship, is going to start by giving us some intel here. They're going to do 2 joint actions with us. So we're going to do, one of them is going to be intel that we use to get this terror group, which gets it automatically 2 successes up to the locating step. Then we want to try to increase stability. I think maybe reduce regional crises. We could also try to, no, they don't have a conflict track, so they're not going to try to de-escalate. Yeah, I think they're going to probably do regional crises here. So we're going to roll and try to get an 8 or less. They got it. So regional crises down to 0. That's good. All right, now we have to find out what Australia is going to do with their unilateral table. They're going to roll with a -1, then with a +1 for the terror group, and another +1 because of China being upset, and then another +1. Ugh. Okay, so +2 total. So a 7 on their table is anti-terror campaign. Reduce a level 3, 2, or 1 terror group in Asia Pacific. Good job. Good job, Australia. Thank you for the assistance. That is much appreciated. So next, we've got India. And unfortunately, India is very close. So they would normally get 2 actions, but they're -1 AP. So they're only giving us 1 activation. And for them, we're going to use them to try to reduce these crises. And we got it. We just needed 8 or less to reduce the crises. Next, we flip over all their tension counters, and they have 2, 3, 4, 5 added to their roll. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not India. It is Israel. I misread it. So Israel gets 2 actions here. I think one of those actions should definitely be this, and I think the other action might be, I think they're going to use both of them to get these terror groups up into the locating track. Because unless the target's fixed, they can't do a raid, which is too bad, because Israel does very good anti-terror raids. They have some good bonuses. But that's what we'll do for them. Next, we have to check out their tensions counter, which is a +1, which is going to go away completely. And then they add no Iran influence. There's no rogue states in the Middle East. Half the status value of the Iranian nuclear missile program, which is 1. Israel-Iran conflict is 1. Yeah, half is 1. So it's +1, +1, -1. So they're going to get a +2 on this roll. Ooh, nice. Very low. Joint training with the U.S. Improved by 1 box the relative strength in Iran/Israel or Israel/neighbors. Let's go ahead and do Israel/Iran, just in case. So, yep, that makes sense. And after India... India is next. Okay, good. I am understanding things correctly. So we are going to go ahead and do that situation with the regional crises go down. Then we flip this. We have the 5 here, which, holy moly, 5 on India's table can be very bad. Level rogue state. They get another +1, so that's 6. Yeah, so they get +6 to their roll. Come on, low. 7. Train Egyptian counter-terror units. Reduce 1 level, 1, 2, or 3 terror group in the Middle East by 1 level. Beautiful. Beautiful. Down by 1. It could have increased tensions with China and other things if we got higher than a 1. So that was very good there. India training with Egypt, helping to get rid of the terror cells in the Middle East. After that, we do Rogue State Action Section. Perform this process below for each Rogue State counter on the map. Level 1, 2, Rogue State is already at war. Do only A. Okay, so we're going to roll and see if they increase their strength during this war. No strength increase. Lucky. Also, if the current war type is a combined air-ground and the rogue state is not winning, roll a d10 on 1 to 5, change the conflict to a guerrilla war. So on 1 to 5, things get worse. They did not go to guerrilla war. That's good. That is very, very good. Okay. Final check. Check unstable states in Middle East and Africa. We have 2 unstable states in the Middle East. They're going to roll, and stability is currently at 5, so there's no benefit or penalty. So we're just going to roll a 9, means that a civil war is broken out. Man, just after we got the other one stopped. And then an 8 is going to mean that nothing changes here. A 1 to a 3, they might have become more stable and it goes away. But right now we've got a civil war that's in a ceasefire, and an unstable state in the Middle East. Now we got to do Africa, same thing. We're going to roll twice. A 3, yes. One of these unstable states goes away. The other one also goes away. Oh, very nice. We get rid of that civil war in Africa, and things are looking pretty hot down there. I mean, they're looking hot everywhere, global warming and everything. But now we get to go to the UN. All right, what chart was that? I think it's in the flip book. Let's find out. Let's go to the videotape. Yes, here it is. 1 humanitarian aid to the world region with the highest regional crisis situation. So we've got 2, 2, 2. Okay, so it's just those 3 areas. So 1, 2, 3. So this one here, Africa is going to get lowered by 1 if they roll that well. They just need a 1 to an 8. They got it. So Africa getting cleaned up even more by the UN. 1 infrastructure aid attempt to the world region with the lowest current stability. I think that's also going to be Africa. Africa getting, oh no, hang on. Central South Asia is also resolve ties randomly. So evens are Africa, and so it's going to Central South Asia, and this will succeed on a roll of 1 to 5. Yes, excellent. Central South Asia stability increases. Now they're going to try to do youth empowerment to weaken terror cells by preventing them from recruiting the youth. The youths. Roll a d10. It's the areas that contain a level 2, the lowest stability area that contains a level 2 or 3 terror group. So it's going to be Africa in this case. Nobody else has a low stability area. So they're going to roll, and on a 1 to a 5, they lower the terror value. Damn, missed. Peace talks in the Civil War. Civil War in the lower stability. So it's going to be Africa again. Make a broker peace talks roll for them and apply the results. Okay, so this is a UN action, so -1. And then +1 because the stability is low. So this is a straight up roll on the Civil War table. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Here. A 3 is fantastic. Ceasefire. Replace the Civil War with a Civil War ceasefire. Decrease regional crisis by 1. Why is Civil War ceasefire not on the other side of Civil War? Arg! No, we don't have that many trade agreements. I don't think we need that many trade agreements. A trade agreement is good to have at the end of the year, though. I'll try to get one by the end. But again, I can't pass a trade agreement with this stupid Congress that hates me. They're stupid doo-doo heads, and that's why they hate me. All right, now I get to initiate some UN actions, US-led actions. I think we want to try to get these Civil War to permanent peace. I think so. The other options we have are similar to what we just saw. We could also place UN sanctions on somebody. We can't put it on China or Russia because they will veto it. But we could put it on Iran or North Korea. Right now, Iran and North Korea don't have super high tensions. They're not super crazy, so that's not a good option. We can do arms control negotiations to decrease the Iran-North Korea nuke missile track. But the result could be that Russia or China gain an influence counter. I don't like that. De-escalate. Decrease a conflict track. Is there like an anti-terror program? Oh, yes, the youth empowerment program. Let's maybe use that. Now, let's try to increase stability twice. So let's see what the first one is. We're going to increase stability in, let's try the Middle East. So we get a -1 to this roll, which means we're looking for a 1 to a 6. Got it. Yes. The Middle East is stable AF. All right. And then we're going to try to increase stability in Central South Asia. No, I can't. I have to choose 2 different actions, I believe. 2 different actions, yeah. You do humanitarian aid. I think brokering peace talks in a civil war might help us. We got 2 civil wars over here. Let's try to take this civil war here down to a ceasefire, I think. So we're going to roll in this track, and let's see what we get. A 2, a -2 to this roll. And stability is no longer bad here. So it's a -2 to the result. We want a 4 or less. Yes. Yes. All right. We got a ceasefire. And the result of that ceasefire is that they allowed it to be enforced by UN peacekeepers, which means when we oh my God, I just want it to be visible. There we go. When we roll on this ceasefire table again in the future, it's got a -2 to make it more likely that we get a permanent peace. And we remove 1 Iranian influence counter if present. Okay. So that's all of our UN actions. Done. 3 domestic actions. This is the one I'm going to spend to remove this marker. That's a free automatic. So I got 2 left. What kind of domestic actions do we want to do here? Improve our media presence? Is that an option? Domestic crises? Actually, domestic crisis went up, so let's address that. We have address a domestic crisis is our national number 1, right? Yeah, so that's pretty good. So we're going to get a -1, -2, and that's it. So that's a 5, and it's a cabinet effectiveness check with our cabinet currently sitting at 5, so it's successful. So we decrease the domestic crises, and we gain 1 approval. That's valuable. Every little bit helps, and we're now finally almost back to the 40% we started with. Oh my God. All right, we got 1 more action to do here. Improving relations with Congress, it's a non-starter. They hate us. There's nothing we can do about that right now. Addressing a lingering domestic issue could significantly increase our public approval. I think we're going to try that. -1, and then +2. And we can't spend an action point on this. So we're just going to get a +1. We need a 4 or less to pass. Huh. If we could get public approval higher, we could get them behind us and it would be easier. Is there anything else we prefer to do on this? Party fundraising. This is very dangerous to do when we don't have good friends in Congress. I already did this one. Encouraging bipartisanship is not bad, but it costs me points. Yeah, we're just going to do that one, and we're hoping for a 4 or less because of the +1 DRM. Damn. Oh, no! We made it worse! Son of a bitch. Okay. Well, there's a 40% chance of making it better, and a 20% chance of that result. So that sucks. So, increase lingering domestic issue track by 1 box, and then -2 to public approval. Jesus. Somehow we made it worse, guys. All right, that's all of our actions. We draw one, and it's a 3-card draw. All right. Coming in the home stretch here for the end of the first half of the year. Public approval. Look at this. My 9/11 anniversary speech spurs an outpouring of patriotism and cooperation. Just like that. +2 public approval, +1 relations with Congress, and move the Bible. That's a beautiful, beautiful event. +1 relations with Congress, +2 public approval. And then we roll a D6 or D10. And we get -1 domestic crisis, which doesn't actually do anything. Oh, a 1 or a 2 would have been great. Either way, that's going into the reshuffle. It could come back. Excellent. Number 2. We are the world. We are the children. Oh, yes. Russia, China, and the U.S. joined to lead a massive world effort to eradicate diseases in China. I'm spending 2 APs right now. I don't even read the rest. We're down to 11. Place a trending pro-U.S. counter in Africa and a U.S. goodwill counter in the earned UN goodwill box. We get another one that we can use in the next UN segment. And we get a trending U.S. counter down here. Place a Russia influence and a China influence in Africa. Ooh, that's bad. Not happy about that part of it. -2 regional crisis in Africa. Remove 2 tensions counters each from Russia, China, Canada, and NATO. All right. So there we go. Remove those. Russia, China, Canada doesn't have any, and NATO. Place a trending pro-U.S. counter on Russia and China. Oh, wow. All that did was cancel out the trending anti-U.S., but you gotta walk before you can run. If either Russia or China's posture is greater than 1, or you're unwilling, unable to spend the 2 APs, then things get much worse. So, wow. Unfortunately, that's going into the discard pile, not the reshuffle. You can only do that 1 time, but still pretty great. Next event, gonna be horrible. Supreme Court rules extraordinary rendition is illegal. Frees Guantanamo prisoners. Oh, no! It presupposes that the Guantanamo prisoners were actually terrorists that would go back to terrorizing after they got out. We may have turned them into terrorists, actually. Okay, in each of the 3 regions, Middle East, Africa, and Central South Asia. So this one goes up, this one goes up, and I guess this one goes up. Ugh, that's terrible. We're going to need some military actions to deal with these terror groups that we've got on the intel track here. We're going to do that soon. Roll a D10. Ugh, -1 public approval. Come on. Ay, ay, ay. But I get another UN? Shit. Huzzah. That means maybe I'll get I'll be proclaimed, get the Nobel Peace Prize here. Now media slant. Is the media against us? It is, so we lose another public approval. Okay, we got some good events in there. I cannot claim that that was that bad, considering all those other good events that we've had come out recently. All right, now we're doing the war progress. So we're going to progress this war. Hopefully I've got enough here. So first step in this process is, which I've recently learned, it's not on WD5 or WM5, by the way, in the war progress section. It doesn't say it here at all, but you get a free cyber attack before you do the war progress. So we're going to take advantage of that free cyber attack against a rogue state. Cyber attacks, in this case, with a -1 because it's against a rogue state. And that's the only outcome. We want a 3 or less. Come on. Oh, yes. Major success. Cripples command and control, communications, and infrastructure. If at war, subtract 2 from their strength. So they lose 2 strength here. Good deal. Then we roll for the reaction. -2. No world reaction. A flawless and convert operation that leaves no fingerprints. Beautiful. Next, let's see. Next, we do the war progress here, which starts by determining strength. We know that was already the case. So we got to determine the U.S.'s strength here. So we've got 4 troops here. 5, 6, plus 6 more is 12. 18, 19, plus 6 here. We may have overdone it, as now means they're 25. 25 to 4 is well over the maximum of 4 to 1. So we're in the 4 to 1 column. Now we have to determine what DRMs are involved. This is an air-ground war. It's not yet a guerrilla war. They haven't been driven underground yet. So we have one of these counters in the region. That's a -1 for the attacker. US is involved. That's another -1. There's a heavy counter in the region. That's another -1. There's a USAF counter in the region. That's a 4th -1. However, Russia and China's combined influence in the region is 2 or more. I couldn't get rid of those in time. That reduces our DRM to only -3 instead of -4. Still, good things. Ideally, we want to get a 4 or less here. Yes! That's a success on a major scale. 2 to the left, which means the stalemate means attacking forces win. The defender suffers 3 losses, which I don't think has an impact because we've got the win here. Let us see what happens next. We didn't have any attacker losses. Next, after you apply the results, +1 regional crisis to the war's region. If the U.S. were involved, also place a U.S. military footprint. So we have to drag one of those military footprints over here. Boot. Now, if the conflict status tracker is in attacking forces win, the war is over. See what to do when a war ends. We don't have an overwhelming victory, which is unfortunate. Unfortunately, in order to get an overwhelming victory, we'd first have to have gotten here and then gotten a double result. Anyway, for game-created rogue state losses, if the losing side is a level 1 or 2 rogue state, roll a d10 with a -2 DRM for the level 1. Okay, d10 -2 is a 2. War is over, but the rogue state's sophisticated infrastructure and online recruiting/communications abilities allow it to continue to function in a decentralized but organized terror groups. Remove the rogue state. Taliban deleted. Place a level 2 terror group in the region. Done. If the loser was a blah, blah, blah. No. If the U.S. was the winner, you receive the following benefits instead of those listed on the U.S. wins. +2 public approval for winning and ending the war with the Taliban. Yay! +1 party relations. We're more popular than ever. +1 legacy point. Excellent. We're up to 9 now. Trending pro-U.S. counter in the region. Good deal. You may immediately make 2 intel rolls in any region with a -1 DRM in addition to any other normal DRMs. Beautiful, because I want to move this terror group up to target fixed, and I want to do that here as well. So let's do that. Let me see if there's anything else after that. Nope, I get 2 intel rolls with -1 in addition to all the others. And that should be the end of that procedure. Yep. Oh, interesting. I never saw that chart. Okay. So let's pull up in the master action military and double check. So we need a 1 to a 4. And both of these are going to be triggered in our current area with an additional -1. So what we need is a 7 or less to boost this terror group. We got it. That's now in the targeting box. And this terror group we need... actually, sorry, that was the wrong terror group. This terror group is in the targeting box. This terror group is going to go up on a 6 or less. Damn it, I did it wrong way. Okay, well, free stuff is free stuff, you know? All right, now we do civil wars, if I remember correctly. Civil wars. There it is. So we do these one at a time for all civil wars out there to find out what happens. So we've got one ceasefire up here. I think this is the Balkans. I think this is like Yugoslavia, like remnant unrest. I'm not 100% sure what else this might represent in Eastern Europe. Okay, so we roll on that table, and we get a minus anything. We get no minus anything, so it's just a straight-up roll, and it's a 5, which has no effect. Fragile peace, no change to Civil War outcome. Next, we have none over here. We have a couple of ceasefires here. Here's the first one with no other modifiers. Oops, I did it again. Ugh, a 7. I think that means it's going to reignite. No, 5 to 7 is no effect. Whew. Okay. And now we have this one, which has a positive modifier, well, a good modifier. It's a -2. Oh, God damn it, even with the peacekeepers. Renewed fighting, +1 regional crisis. Replace ceasefire counter with a civil war and remove peacekeepers. After all that work! Could have gotten rid of it forever. Now we've got to roll for these two. First one is a 6, which has no effect. Second one is an 8. Fighting intensifies, increased regional crises. Finally, we've got the ceasefire down here in Africa, which results in a permanent peace. Remove the civil war counter. Decrease regional crises by 1 box, which doesn't do anything. Just goes away. All right, Somalia is cured. No other problems in Somalia. Beautiful. Finally, any 4 diplomatic or military actions. We're going to deal with those terror groups right now. This terror group, we're going to need to lock in on them. Maybe we do it. Maybe we do a raid first here. We've got 4 military actions. Let's use them one at a time. So we're going to spend 1 right now on a raid, which I need to look up the chart for. Give me 1 second. Scenario box. I don't need that. WD6, or no, WM6, WM5, WM6. Oh, no, WM3, 2, WM2. That's the chart. There it is. So we've got the raid table. We're going to try to raid this terror group here. -1 if there's a U.S. special ops and an intel counter. Check. -1 if there is a focused national intel counter in the region. Check. -2, blah, blah, blah. +1 if the target is a level 3 or 4 group. All right, so it's a total of -1 to this. Roll. 7 is down to a 6. Success with casualties. Decrease the terror group by 1 level. Move terror group to the gathering box on the intel track. -1 public approval because of the casualties. Ouch. But we've weakened them. You know, if we didn't have that stupid +1, and then they go to the gathering box, yeah. All right. Next is going to be an intel to try to move this 3 up. So we need a 1, 2, 5 to do it over here. This is the second action. Success. Third action, we're going to do the same thing here, and it's going to be in the same -1. Gulp. Failure with many casualties. Oh, God. 1, 2, 3. I forgot the other one from before. Move terror group to the gathering box on the intel track. Oh, boy, that is horrible. -1 legacy point. Yikes. That was a... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Back up. We should have been down 1 for the successful casualties over here. When performing, one of these, I can spend an AP to re-roll it once. And I'm going to do that because the 10 was just a terrible result. Come on. All right. 4 to a 3. Success. Decrease terror group by 1 level and move it to gathering on the intel track. Actually, that was a 4 out of 3, but the same result. That was much, much better than the other possible result. Okay. So we did this, that. We've got one more we could do here. And I think we're going to have a summit with Russia. Russian summit. We have to mark that we're doing it because you can only have one summit per activation phase, but we're about to end this activation phase. So it seems like a good time to do it. So that's in the Russia book. It's in the back. There we go. Russia summit. So we have a relationship of a 2 or a 3, so we get to try and deal with 2 or 3 problems. I kind of wouldn't mind them having an anti-terror campaign. They could help me in Central South Asia. Oh, they have to have better relations. Then let's try the first problem we're going to do is improve relations. So we're going to roll on this chart with no bonuses or penalties. It's just a flat roll, it looks like. And see what they demand to improve our relations. Fuck. They demand a Russian influence counter in Eastern Europe. I'll acquiesce to this request, but I'm not happy about it. In response, we get a trending pro-US counter on the Russian relationship track. Okay. We could try to improve trade. Stabilize Eastern Europe. The joint terror campaign will only work if they have relations of 3 or more. So we can't do any of those. We could jointly mediate a civil war ceasefire. Only if relationship with the US is 2 or higher. Yeah. Let's try that. Let's try doing that here in Central South Asia. We're going to roll the dice. Damn it. They demand that we remove any sanction on Russia. Russia gains 1 AP and 1 Russian influence in the region. I think we're just going to refuse that. The result of the summit table. Let's see how the world reaction is. We resolved one problem, but we didn't resolve the other. Okay, good. The result is +2 public approval and remove 1 tensions counter from Russia. Because we got half of the things done that we said we were going to get done. So we get a little bit of public approval here. Trying to claw our way back up. If you can get above 60, things get a lot of positive modifiers there. But all right, so that was our last action, was the Russian summit. So now we've got one last thing to do. Place the footprint marker in Middle East instead of South End. Yes, I did. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, now we just check the U.S. state of the economy impact. So this can have good results. Well, it will have good results. So we get to do 2 U.S. economic assistance situations where we improve our allies' relationship by 1 level or place a trending pro-U.S. in an area. I'm going to add a trending pro-U.S. here in Central/South Asia. Then I'm going to improve our relationship with Saudi Arabia, I believe. Actually, I shouldn't need to do that because we're going to get to do that for free up here. So maybe instead I'm going to add another trending pro-US counter somewhere. I can add it to Africa, to one of the 8 world regions. I could add it here in Europe. Let's do that. So we'll put the US alignment in Europe even higher. Ugh, I got to deal with this. I got to deal with that, but I didn't have any domestic ways to do it. Now I gain 1 approval and 1 AP. Back to 40%. After 6 months, we have clawed our way back to the approval we started the year with. Ouch. Ouch. What's coming next? China's going to act next and make our life a living hell. Then we get any 3 actions. Then we're drawing like 6 more cards. Ish. We've still got the UN acting over here. That's going to be a lot of good stuff for us. Our allies are going to get to act here and here. Media relations are going to tank again. We're not very good at that, but at least we'll get our POTUS cabinet focus here. And one of those things is going to be an improved relation with Congress. It's only on a 1 to 3, but still. All right, that's the world situation. Thanks for watching. We'll probably pick this up again tomorrow. I'm going to guess 10 a.m. Eastern time. Excuse me. In honor of Independence Day, what better way to spend it than playing a little Mr. President? Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.